Good morning, all of you. Welcome to the conversation on entrepreneurship with Dr. Kalpana Gopalan. Begin with, I thank everybody who has joined the meeting and is yet to join the meeting, the management of this institution, the principal and the staff of this department who have made a lot of effort to conduct an event or conversation of this nature. These are extraordinary times, and extraordinary times demand extraordinary conversations. And today we have amidst us a truly extraordinary person. Dr. Kalpana Gopalan is an extraordinary leader who is a blend of public service policy, business school graduate, and a true humanist. I would like to borrow her own words for providing an appropriate and accurate description of her. She has a head of an IAS officer, heart of an academician, and hands of a volunteer. She is a 1987 batch IAS officer who is currently holding the post of Additional Chief Secretary, Department of Youth Empowerment and Sports, Government of Karnataka. She also has master's and doctorate degree in public policy from IIM Bangalore. Dr. Kalpana Gopalan is a recipient of Mother Teresa Women Empowerment Award 2019 for outstanding contribution to excellence in leadership. She's also a recipient of International Human Rights Award 2019 and the Women of Courage category. She was felicitated and awarded citations and commendations by Bangalore University, Neti University, Enapoya University, Mysore University, Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Vishwesvaraya Institute of Technology, We Lead Empowering Women's Growth, Gulbarga University, Jain University, Ramaya Institute of Technology, Acharya Institutions, Melkote Academy of Sanskrit, SJES institutions, Republic of Maldives, and Institute of Engineers, India. She led the NLM UNESCO 2000 Award for Karnataka with her work in literacy and Karnataka Ratna Award 2013 for Kaveri Handicrafts. She's an advisor, Bangalore City Corporation, honorary consultant, administrative staff, honorary consultant, administrative training staff, Mysore, member advisory committee, public sector advisory, member advisory board, Government Blockchain Association, India. There are many things about Dr. Kalpana Gopalan to share with, but I understand that we have limited time with her, so we'll just pass on the stage to her so that she can talk and we can hear from her. And after that, we'll have conversation. In the process, we'll also take some questions. If you have some questions, please keep posting it. We will kind of take it to her and see how the whole thing. That's how the whole thing works. Madam, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure and privilege to have you here. We are so thankful that you're here, and we are just looking forward to hear from you, madam. The screen is on for you, and you can take over from here, madam. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that very kind introduction, and thank you for being here. And kudos to the organizers for organizing a conversation on so topical an issue which is of supreme importance, not just for our present, but for the future of our country. And let me begin with a real life instance. Some time ago, I received a message from Meera Suresh, a LinkedIn connection. And this is what Meera said. And this is within quotes. Dear madam, 1 year back, you came to Rajagiri Business School, Kochi, to attend the gathering and talk about empowerment and entrepreneurship. I was one of the students who keenly listened to your words. And it not only gave me some good time, but also helped me to start my own venture. Today, I have started my journey, a zero financial investment project with a whole women team, and we named it Wordsmith. Thank you, ma'am, for the fire you have filled in us. So Meera, who was a business school student just a year ago, is now the co-founder and business marketing head at Wordsmith Writers. It filled me with pride and joy and gratitude that I could be a mentor in this young entrepreneur's journey. Every decade has a few milestone magnets that define it. This decade is indeed the decade of startups. The startup ecosystem has attracted thousands of young, talented brains all over the world. And the good news is that India has also joined the race. Software services companies brought about the first wave of change in the early 2000s when the demand for human resource in the IT sector was huge. But at that time, the dream of opening a startup was only for a rare breed of brave entrepreneurs. The change really occurred when recession hit the world in 2008 and 9. I was a doctoral fellow in IIM Bangalore at that time. In seminars and workshops, the message was that the impact on the Indian economy was not drastic. But the pressure felt by fresh management graduates who had a heavy student loan on their shoulders but no job offers was very real. It is quite possible we will see a very similar scenario in the post-COVID-19 world. So, adversity became the spark for people to think different. Millennial Indians are strong believers in pursuing their own dreams rather than the safety of a regular paycheck. And the cue came from Silicon Valley with its startup culture. It is possible in the IT sector for someone to come up with a brilliant new software solution or an app and make a viable business proposition out of it. Moreover, the growth in technology and the fast growing demand for smartphones helped fuel the idea of technology startups. And the age of the startup Indian was born. India enjoys some significant advantages which we have to recognize. First, demographic dividend. India is a young country with almost 65% of the population in the age group of 25 to 35 years. This augurs well for the country as right education and healthcare can see the economy soar. Youth is the driving force behind innovation, creation, and the future leadership of the country. Youth also drives the demand and consumption pattern in the country. For startups, youth can make up the workforce that it so desperately needs, and going forward, youth can be a huge talent base for startups. Second, unique innovation opportunities. India has a set of problems that need innovations to be homegrown, to originate from within the country. Problems around its health, education, infrastructure, sanitation are unique to India, and solutions from the Western world cannot solve it. Each problem provides a unique opportunity for solving some pressing issue and at the same time to create a business around it. What helps is that most problems around emerging economies are similar in nature, and solutions applicable here can also work in many countries in Africa and Asia. This enables Indian startups to acquire an even bigger scale and at the same time make a meaningful impact around the world. Third, large population. Indian startups need not look overseas for markets. India, with over 1 billion people, presents a very large home market for goods or services. A rising disposable income and growing aspirations of a mushrooming middle class have meant that there is a large appetite for brands. The large population has also led to a consumer expenditure growth, which in turn has propped up supply and production. Startups that look to service and cater to the large population in solving a pain point or providing a utility is one of the world's most important consumer markets stand to do well. Fourth, high mobile penetration. India's tele-density is almost 80%, with a subscriber base touching 100 crore. High mobile penetration in urban and rural India has reshaped the economy of the country and goods and services marketing. It has led to greater efficiencies and increased productivity. It has meant that businesses profit through faster decision making, better logistics, and even access to bank accounts. Higher mobile penetration has also led to increased financial inclusion and flow of credit to the unbanked. Growth in mobile penetration is transforming the way businesses and consumers communicate and work. With the data-enabled mobile phones, the very nature of startups and businesses have changed. For example, startups that develop mobile apps now have an ever-increasing market to cater to. So, while it is encouraging to see that India stands abreast with other developing countries, are we really leading the global startup ecosystem, or are we a major player in it? To my mind, more challenging task in our country is to create a culture that accepts and nourishes entrepreneurship. Nurturing a vibrant startup ecosystem includes the holistic participation of all stakeholders, including government, management institutes, startup entrepreneurs, and society. First, the government. It is incumbent upon the government to put in place an ecosystem that fosters and sustains entrepreneurship in the country to create durable human and industrial assets. The Central Department of Science and Technology set up India's first startup village at Kochi as the first PPP model incubator in 2012. Since then, the government has taken many initiatives, single window clearance even with a mobile application, rupees 10,000 crore funding, a modified and more friendly bankruptcy code, self-certification compliance, innovation hub under the Atal Innovation Mission, new schemes such as Stand Up India and Startup India, as well as IPR protection for new startups and new firms. These are some of the initiatives that government has taken. Second, management education. As a business school product myself, I am very keen that certain things have to change in management education in India. Management education in our country is flawed, and it is flawed especially in three aspects. First, program design is function oriented, but business reality cannot be divided into separate disciplines. There is no such thing as a marketing problem or a financial problem or a production problem. It is a business problem. The shift away from interdisciplinary thinking in business education has led to students' insufficient preparation to become strategic leaders. Second, management education has been overemphasizing analysis, treating management as a science. The art part of management has been downplayed to the detriment of business students. This analytical approach has led to problems such as the knowing-doing gap and the inability to address issues that are ambiguous and context-based. Third, many business courses use economic and financial indicators to measure success. The overemphasis on economic success and the underemphasis on values and ethics has contributed to unethical behavior being regarded as okay, dishonesty being regarded as clever. So, what should B schools do to make management education pertinent to management practice? First, intake selection should be done with care. Greater weightage should be given to entrants with work experience, which will enable them to test the theoretical input against their lived work reality. Second, pedagogical methods should change. Practical expertise attained from years of experience in the domain should substitute simulated reality through case studies. Third, the syllabus and research should strive to be more dynamic and updated and grounded in the Indian reality. Some years ago, I used to teach at Kuvempu University, which is a rural university in Shimoga in Karnataka. I was amazed at how Indian their research program was, much in contrast to the Western orientation of B school research. This was something which I would like emulated in management institutes so that we can find real solutions to real problems. Third, societal attitudes to entrepreneurship and investment have to change. Entrepreneurship and startups are only a recent phenomenon in the country. It is only in the last decade and a half that people in the country have moved from being job seekers to job creators. Doing a startup in our country is tough, and every country sees more failures than success. An entrepreneur needs to be prepared to face failures and hardship. However, culturally, we as Indians are not groomed to fail, and failure is frowned upon. It is regarded as the end of the road, not just a bump in the road. Given that the vast majority of startups fail, Indian business culture must take a good hard look at its tolerance for founders' missteps and encourage the knowledge gained from failure to be applied to future success. Entrepreneurship thrives on celebration, and a society that fails to appreciate business failures stifles innovation and creativity. It is time that Indian business culture begins to encourage the information gained from failures to be applied to future successes. Given that the vast majority of startup journeys end before taking flight, a business environment must be cultivated wherein limited funding and the lack of a proven business model should not act as constraints. Finally, the entrepreneur herself has her own contribution to make. There is a tendency to overlook the self-evident and the obvious while grappling with sophisticated digitalization or financials. So these are just a few things that the entrepreneur, you should remember. First, behind the app, there is a reality. Deal with that reality first. Governments and industries have been struggling with forward and backward linkages for as far as I can remember in my 32-year-old career. Will it be magically transformed if we shift to the digital mode? For instance, you will remember quite recently during the pandemic, Delhi government brought out an app to display vacant beds and infrastructure in hospitals, in private hospitals. But soon it became very clear that the actual vacancy position and the number in the app were quite different, and it did really little to help the public who were running from hospital to hospital to get their treatment. Second, you forget people at your peril. Like product infrastructure, human infrastructure has to be reoriented to the new economy. And this means capacity building. We speak a lot about skill development nowadays. but I want to go beyond skilling. Training is required not just in product knowledge, but in politeness, normal human decency. Some time ago, I was traveling to Delhi. This was before the pandemic, when we were still traveling by air. The flight was full. For some unfathomable reason, the hospitality crew, that is the air hostesses and the stewards, they decided to appropriate the two washrooms in the front of the craft for their own use. So intent were they that no passenger should access it even by accident, that they barred the ale with a foot trolley. When faced with stupidity, passengers submitted, as we usually do, and the flight reached its destination. But when that particular airline found itself in the doldrums a few months later, I smiled with quiet satisfaction and murmured, "I told you so," to myself. Of course, examples abound. Cantankerous and dangerous taxi drivers, delivery boys who gobble up your dinner en route, airline staff who assault passengers on the tarmac. The only remedy is training with discipline and integrity. Third, be socially responsible. Do well, but not at the cost of doing good. This is especially important in a context where social entrepreneurship and rural entrepreneurship are gaining ground. For a public servant like myself, it is heartening to see that public service and social consciousness is becoming pervasive among youth and among industry leaders. But I must caution against transference of our own unconscious biases and ways of thinking into a milieu that is unprepared for it. Whether you like it or not, you are working with the poor, the deprived, the underprivileged, and your objective and methodology cannot be merely to run a business. It should be to provide a service. You may not see your clientele either as a fertile source of profit making or a beneficiary awaiting your largesse. The only way, the only honorable, sustainable, human way is to meet them as co-participants in your common development. If you need to lose a little so that your clients can win, make that sacrifice. It will sustain you in the long run. I tried to give you a clear-sighted picture of the Indian startup ecosystem in India. There is good and bad, but it is undeniably an exciting time to be an entrepreneur in this country. The resources for startups are growing, internet access is exploding, and educational initiatives for the startup community are expanding exponentially. Access to networks of mentors and advisors is becoming easier. Given the injection of international capital and knowledge support, we will likely continue to see the stunning growth of Startup India in the years to come. What I would encourage each of you to do is to use the startup initiative to transform the way you do business and revolutionize the way business is done in India. Having a brilliant idea is different from making that idea a business success. People should be encouraged to envision, innovate, and become job creators instead of job seekers. India is at the crossroads where it now has to cater to the aspirations of a billion people. Existing frameworks can prove inadequate, and there is great need to leverage a billion minds and become a global power. Startups and entrepreneurships are the best way forward in making India a superpower. I wish you all the very best as partners in this exciting journey. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your opening remarks. I think we have a lot of questions. We are kind of we are very kind of we are enthusiastic about asking to you. The first question from our side would be uh,
Yeah.
the first question from our side would be, Madam, there is an economic slowdown. Undoubtedly, there is an economic slowdown. We are already
Yes.
seeing data coming from Japan and Australia, which is
Hmm.
kind of has sent some signal in terms of where economies world over are heading to. As a person
Yes.
who is watching government from performing from close quarters, and somebody who's involved with business, what is your take on upcoming or upcoming, what do you call, economic upcoming economic recession, or some people call it, or some even go to an extent of predicting it as uh, economic depression? What is your
Okay.
take on what is going to happen in future? And there is an extension question, Madam. Do you see quick recovery? What economists say, a V-shaped recovery? Is there any possibility of quick recovery possible from this pandemic, or is this going to be an U or an extended L where recovery is going to take quite some time in terms of economy getting back to where it was? How do you see all this happening, Madam?
Yeah. This is something which is, troubling all our minds, and I think keeping us all awake. See, the thing is, uh, I'm a realist. I'm a pragmatist. I do envision that the immediate future is going to be hard, and it is especially going to be hard for us Indians. Now, we are not in the best place to start with. So, given all our constraints, limitations, it is going to be harder for us. So it's not the pace of the curve, or the curve of the curve itself is going to be different for different parts of the world. And I envision ours is going to be slow and gradual. So we need to be mentally prepared for that. That said, I don't see a cause for gloom. The world and India has seen so many such crises, and we have come out of it successfully. So I think that the same is going to happen with this also. Beginning with 100 years ago, the Spanish flu, the 2008 subprime crisis, which we saw, the world wars, the human psyche is resilient. And we are already seeing, the resilience at work. We saw this whole exodus of the migrant workers, but then you see now that some of them are coming back, some of them are being encouraged to restart. I do see that a lot more is going to depend on each of us rather than our depending on the government, as has been the case in India. We need to depend more, become more and more independent and self-dependent. I see more of scope in that way. May not be large industries, but a lot of micro level startups, lot of micro level MSMEs or entrepreneurial ventures coming up in different parts of the country, making use of the talent pool available in the different parts, and creating jobs in clusters in different parts of the country. The recovery is going to be faster in some areas, slower in the others. So if you're going to have multiple lines, and all those curves are going to be different. Maybe Bangalore will recover differently from Louisiana, or Delhi will recover differently from Kanyakumari. It's going to be different, but I see a lot of these clusters coming up, which will become, microcosms of entrepreneurial and economic activity. That is what I see in the future. So let's see what the future holds. I'm not able to see all the questions, so I can just see one here.
No, madam, questions, we will kind of filter it here before we ask it to
Okay,
ask you, madam.
that's fine.
We
That's
already
fine.
have collected some questions. We will also
Fine.
definitely ask you also the questions from audience. The other
Yeah.
question is, the pandemic has presented unknown factors to entrepreneurs. Uh, Now, how do you see the landscape of entrepreneurship kind of getting affected with this pandemic? Do you think those who are willing to take risk, there are always people willing to take risks and they will do well, or do you see that entrepreneurship declining for some time, at least in near time? In terms of number of ventures which are coming out, do you see some decline in that particular front, or do you see that this is one area which will not be affected, and this is one area where the growth, we will still see the growth, or at least the status quo, madam?
This is just following with my previous reply. See, I do see an impact, but the impact which I see is different from the kind of impact you're predicting. That startups itself will may collapse or have a deep dive. I don't see that. What I see is that you are going to have a number of startups, many more, because both government and industry alone, the conventional government and industry alone, are not going to be able to support the number of youth who are already out looking for employment, and those who are going to come out in the next year or two before the full effect of the pandemic wears off. So we will be compelled to be self-dependent. I also see a different kind of economy emerging. See, even where we see self-employment, we are going to see a kind of a variant of the gig economy, where we are going to have more of freelancing. So even where there is a professional. Now, think of a doctor, for instance, which is something which we are more used to. A doctor is, let's take a medical surgeon. He is attached to one institution, maybe a medical college or a corporate hospital. But he is also consultant in many others. He goes around, he actually peddles his skills. He displays his expertise. He uses his expertise in multiple locations, multiple institutions, and he earns remuneration from all of that. A similar thing is going to happen with professionals, whether it's management professionals or computer professionals or professionals of any other, chartered accountants, lawyers. They are going to be able to work independently, and as what you say, brick and mortar organizations slowly scale down and we start working more and more virtually, then most of these professions will shift to the online mode, and they will be able to peddle their expertise. So it could be, a one-man firm, or it could be a small group of firms, even in more sophisticated enterprises like law or finance. This is going to happen. And similarly, in manufacturing, you are going to have smaller hubs more spread out across the country. We all may not have enough capital to set up a large industry, a large entrepreneurship venture. But smaller ventures are going to grow in clusters. That's what I anticipate will happen. So let's wait and watch. There's going to be an impact, but the impact is going to be of a different kind. I see parallelly human resilience also working.
Madam, one of the reasons why we are asking these questions was to get a perspective as to in terms of what is happening inside the corridors of power and also in the corridors of power in businesses, because you have an insight into both of these. We thought your perspective on this would be very, very important and would all enlighten us. The other thing we would like to ask you and throw a bit of light on is what would be your advice to entrepreneurs who have started, who are there in the business, who are hit by the pandemic? Do you suggest them to stay back? Do you suggest them to go for cost cutting, or go and aggressively invest in marketing, or a combination of both these? How do you think, what would be your advice when an entrepreneur who comes to you and says, my business is not doing well, madam, what should I do now?
Yeah.
It was doing well. It is
so in the short run, it's going to be hard. There's no escaping from that fact. So depending on every venture's individual circumstance, a call has to be taken. there is going to be, and we already have seen, there is going to be some support from the government. That has happened, and that will continue to happen, but that may not be enough. So tail down in the short run, perhaps. But there is also going to see the. It's not just that you need not stop, but you may have to work differently, right? So you may have to shift to an online mode. Now, if you are so many industries which were hardly impacted by the pandemic. Now, my daughter works in a law firm, and they just shifted to the online mode, just like that, because they were already so very tuned. And in fact, the transaction with between Jio and Facebook, where Facebook purchased 10% of the Jio stake, that was my daughter was working on that transaction, and the entire negotiation went on, online, remotely. There were hardly any face-to-face meetings, because the whole period when these negotiations were on was during the onset of the lockdown and the pandemic and the consequent lockdown. So we may have to shift to modes of working. You also may not find enough in the talent pool, because people have gone back to their homes and they may not be able to come back in the immediate. So most of the expertise which you need, you may have to secure it online. This may not apply to the brick and mortar ventures, but will apply to a lot of those professional areas where digitalization and remote working is possible. So we may have to shift our way of working. We need to be prepared in the short and medium term for some pain, and that's not going to, that will impact each of us. But going forward, I think we maybe, as the effect of the pandemic gradually wears off and the economy finds its feet again, your old business will revive, maybe with much more sophisticated functioning. So I would encourage each of you to stay on and keep the faith.
Those were encouraging words, madam. One more question which our faculty member has wanted to ask, and he has submitted way back yesterday, and he was very particular that we ask you this question is, what is your idea of leadership, madam? Like, what crisis leadership? What could be that vision of this ideal leader who could lead us through this crisis? Let it be for a company, let it be for governments, let it be for anybody. Who would be the ideal leader who could actually take us through this crisis period? What is your idea of crisis leadership?
More and more, I have grappled with leadership all my life, because the IAS throws you into leadership situations. It becomes more, somewhere I had said that it is not a choice and it is not, a decision, but it is a way of life. But more and more, as I see, leadership for me translates into responsibility. And who is the best leader? I would say you, in your context and your situation, and me in my context and my situation. And that's what we are seeing today around us. All of us, wait for one great leader, one Messiah to show us the way. But, when will that Messiah come? Meanwhile, we are each creating paths for ourselves. We are each finding our own way, and we are finding ways for people around us. Now, when the pandemic happened, I'm the head of the NSS, the National Social Service Scheme in my state. And I had a video conference with my NSS volunteers. And one of them said, the youth full of energy, they said, we want to do something. What should we do? Tell us what to do. So I just said, look around you immediately. Look around you. Who is the person most in need of help? Go help. What is the kind of help that they need? Do they need food? Do they need shelter? Do they need to access their hometown? Just go ahead and do it for them. And all of them went and did it, or most of them went and did it. And you had, hundreds of budding leaders all over. And today they come back to me with their stories. This is what I was able to do, and this is what, and they feel enriched with experience. So if you ask me about leadership, maybe a year or two ago, I would have told you a different mantra, but today I will say that look into yourself and you'll find the leader. And you give leadership to you and to those near you who most need it, and encourage them also to be leaders in their turn. Leadership is
I think
taking responsibility.
those are beautifully said, madam. Like, those are beautiful words. I can understand what you actually mean. We can actually feel what you wanted to say or communicate in the whole process. We can actually sense that, if virtually online, we can actually sense what the speaker wants to communicate to us. One question we will take from the audience. Susendrian was asking this question: can academia and business is there a way academia can contribute to business now, in terms of in whatever mode it is? How do you see this relationship between academia and business, for that matter, entrepreneurship or startups? How do you see the linkage between academia and all other aspects of this business? Can there be something where they can help each other, or do you think it's time for businesses to actually do everything for themselves and try to see find a way out? How do you see that?
Um, okay, is there a way? Should they work together? Quite emphatically, yes. Right? What else is academia for except to make life easier, except to contribute to the national development? So that said, is it happening now? Well, both yes and no. Many of you must be business school graduates. Definitely, the inputs of business school are useful to us in industry building and nation building. But as I already said, that it is our business education is flawed, especially in our country. It is the link between theory and practice. You cannot have a theory and then try to force fit practice into it. Your theory has to be born out of what you see around you and what the practitioner does. And that, I think, is not enough. Um, Many times theory is playing catch up with practice. That practitioner has gone far ahead. You see that happening in the pandemic also. We are going ahead doing things, and then theory follows. Maybe in a crisis situation it's different, but most of the time we need to change our pedagogy. We need to make it more practice oriented. We need to make it more application oriented, and we need to make it, the kind of tools that we use. We need more practical expertise, real leaders coming and teaching. We need immersion experiences. The kind of training which we undergo in the IAS, our first year of training as we enter service. I entered service way back in '87. The first year of my service, I was in the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration in Mussoorie. It was entirely theoretical. It was practice-based theory, but it was still classroom learning. But the second year, we were actually put on jobs. And the jobs which we were doing was what our subordinates do. So I worked as a village accountant, I worked as a block development officer. We don't have BDOs anymore now. We have what is called executive officers, but they work in the rural areas. So I worked as a BDO. I worked for months together as a tahsildar. So you start to practice by doing, you learn. So I think our academic pedagogy has to be changed. We may not have enough the luxury of time to spend 2 years on training alone, where the IAS does. But you need to have much more that you intertwine theory and practice, much more immersion in real life. I think academia has a lot to contribute and should be contributing more. And it should be Indian. We can't have Western solutions for Indian problems. We need to find our own.
Madam,
Hello? Hello? Hello?
yes, yes.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear
Hello?
you. Just speak.
Okay,
One minute.
madam. Good morning.
One minute. One
Good
minute, sir.
morning, madam.
You want to ask a question? Yes, yes. You can ask the question, but a question now you can ask. But next time, all the other participants, kindly send your question on the chat box, because there are sequence of
Okay, okay.
questions. Yes, sir, you can go ahead,
Okay,
sir. You
okay.
can go ahead. You can go ahead, sir.
Right. Good morning, madam.
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah, tell me, please speak.
Okay. As an entrepreneur, You are literally is the very good in practically how much percentage they are success in the entrepreneurs as per the your knowledge is concerned, madam.
I don't have a statistic with me, but for me, success is not what is success. That they make a profit, then you'll find quite a number. Say about 70 to 80%. May make a profit at some point of their journey. May not be throughout. Are they? For me, success means two things: that they are able to provide a socially useful product, function, or service. A, that they are able to provide a livelihood for the entrepreneur herself and for the people that she employs. And three, they are able to do one and two on a fairly long-term model, so that the entrepreneurial venture itself is sustainable. Now, if you are having these three parameters, what is most required is that you stay in the arena. You don't close shop. There was one question which said that the pandemic has hit us. Should we just close shop, close our doors, and stop our ventures? No, you stay in the arena, and every time you're knocked down, you get up again. But you will not find. I don't have the statistics with me. I think you'll get the statistics maybe in some report on startups. But if you are using these three parameters, I think you may have 30 to 40% which make the cut. But their contribution is much more than somebody who makes a good profit, which in a short term, which there will be quite a number. I think 70 to 80% you will have who are able to get a profit from out of their venture.
Okay, madam,
Thank you,
one
madam.
question
Thank you.
we kind of from before I go on with the next question, I would like to inform all the participants, kindly don't pop up with your questions. Kindly put your questions in the chat box. We will direct them to the speaker. Madam, the one question we would like to ask you, and from the day you are coming in, this is something which we wanted to ask you. And the question is like, the capitalism, the COVID-19 has exposed the cruel side of capitalism. We have seen migrants, we have seen the crisis of the poor and the deprived. We are seeing that the effects are deep and felt by most of us. Now, do you think this system of capitalism as a system, is it working, or has the time come where we have to rethink about the very system we have for so long been the torch bearers or carriers of this particular system? To what extent do you blame the system for all this, or to what extent do you think we need there needs to be a change or anything? This is a question which is coming up across the world as of now. Into, is this system working? Are we dependent on a system which is too weak to withstand in this times of crisis?
Okay, I don't want to be bound by isms, but as I already said, something which is solely profit driven will not
Yes.
work. It may appear to work in the short run, it may appear to work even in the longer run, but at some point, some crisis like the pandemic we see will bring it down to its knees. Now, I have this, what do you call it? A belief system, which I call personal social responsibility. So we are all familiar with corporate social responsibility. But what does CSR? Capitalism, within quotes, has come up with the concept of CSR, corporate social responsibility. You dump that social responsibility on some industry shoulders or some corporate unit or some firm, and then you can merely wash your hands off and send WhatsApp messages. No, each of us have a personal social responsibility or an individual social responsibility. Okay? This is what you and I can do, and this can stand in the long run. Okay, that it does not require industry or a firm or anything to support it. You just need to look out of your window. When the pandemic started, some of my business school friends wrote to me, messaged me saying, we want to join the effort. Now tell me where I should go and work. Just like my NSS volunteers asked. I told them the same thing, that look after yourself, your family, and then look after those who are nearest around you. So each of us have an individual or a personal social responsibility. And the pandemic has brought home to us. It is regardless, call it capitalism, socialism, anyism. This is, a verity which should remain with you throughout life. And COVID-19 has brought home to us that there is a collective social responsibility, because anything which I do impacts not just on myself, but on hundreds of others. And when so many of us, when we saw the migrants, we wrung our hands. We said, "Oh God, what is happening?" And we sent many WhatsApp messages. But there were others who used their resources, and they just set up a shop, they set up a kitchen, they fed them on the way. Some of them offered them transport, others managed their bookings for them. So just stand up and do. It hardly matters when you do something with the social conscience, when you understand your responsibility. And that is why I say that leadership is going to be much more dispersed. The concentrated leadership of the Carlyle mode, where you look upon a king to take care of everything, or now you look upon some Tata to take care of everything, or some big industry leader or a prime minister. No, each of us have that responsibility, and each of us have to exercise that responsibility. So don't worry about the ism, but whatever you do, whatever profession that you adopt, you must have a parallel career, whether you are an entrepreneur or whether it is not necessary that your venture itself should serve the rural and poor. Your entrepreneurial venture can be, for professional or digital one, but you have a parallel career where you serve someone who is in need, whether you do it to teach somebody. Or I have a classmate, she's a good singer. She used to be a good singer in school, and now she goes to hospitals singing in the ICU. So this is how she contributes. So do it in some way, and if you can gather together a group of like-minded people, even better. Groups work even better. So forget about leadership in the conventional sense. Forget about capitalism or socialism. The isms are not going to save us. It is you and I who have to save each other. So each of us has a personal social responsibility. Please exercise it. Start doing now. For the young, juggle two careers. Now I have juggled. I think in the introduction you had said that I have the head of a bureaucrat, the heart of an academic, and the hands of a volunteer. I'm juggling 3 careers. It's no sweat at all. You can do it easily with your energy. If I can do it in my 50s, you can do it. Okay? So just go ahead and do it.
Thank you for the answer, madam, because that was one question we cannot avoid asking you, because in academia, this is one big debate which is going on. And whenever we have a speaker from public policy, it's like people are, this is a question you need to ask, this is a question you need to ask, and there is a huge debate which also is going on. Madam, now we had questions on entrepreneurship and to some extent on economic economic systems. And 1 or 2 questions we would like to ask you, madam. How do you manage between business and bureaucracy? They don't. I think there is. This is something which kind of two opposite poles, and and nothing looks good from each other's side. And if I am a businessman, nothing looks good in bureaucracy, and if I am a bureaucrat, everybody in business is a criminal. Now how how do you manage this? How do you share this perspective? How do you balance it out, like to have a balanced view?
I don't believe in silos, right? I don't believe in silos of any kind. I think we just come up. See, there is a great. Let me get philosophical for a moment. I'll come back to practicality. but there is this need for identity, right? So all of us want to belong to a particular group. It gives us a sense of identity. It also makes us have a sense of belonging. So that could be any kind of group. It could be a caste group, a religious group, or it could be a professional group, and that's what we do, and that's fine within its limits. But your belonging to your group should not make you antipathetic to any other group. It's very easy when we see it in a caste context. We understand it perfectly well. Let's say you are belonging or a religious group. It's very easy to see this, but we do the same thing with our professional identities. We are creating this groupism even within our professions. I do understand the need to belong, but the need to belong should not close your doors to everyone else. So I have not believed in silos. Somehow I think it was both a question of my upbringing and my reading and my exposure. And when I was in IIM, I was so comfortable. Remember that I was not only a bureaucrat in academia, but I was also studying along with scholars who were about my children's age, maybe a few years older than my children. So even the age barrier was there. But I never felt it, because there's always so much to learn, so much to share. And if you forget about the silos, then life will become so much more easier. You can keep your ground, you can keep your feet anywhere, but your head should be, be able to see the vast panorama that opens up before you. So if I close my eyes to industry, I cannot function as a bureaucrat. If I cannot see the difficulties or the advantages of the NGO sector, then I cannot be a good industrialist. So just break the silos. It's not, and we are going to be able to have to do this very soon. This kind of silo mode of working will change, because most work becomes collaborative. Scientific research is collaborative. Let's take COVID-19. You have a wonderful doctor, let's say. He's a virologist of the utmost reputation. If you give him a nurse who does not know what is pulmonology, he's not going to be able to work. So you need a trained nurse. So we all have to cross those barriers, professional barriers, other mental barriers, so that we can work together as teams of different levels. It's not just engineers working with engineers, doctors with doctors. But you have in the pandemic a situation, let's say the expert committee of doctors, they take a decision that is translated into a circular or a instruction by the bureaucrat, and that in turn is implemented in the field by a police constable. So you have a medical practitioner, a bureaucrat, and then a field level functionary. They all have to understand. They all have to be in sync. So we should learn to work together. It's an imperative. It's not a choice.
One of our participants has said, has asked this, and I was kind of, I don't know, like I was finding it hard to actually put it somewhere in the middle, but this is the question he says, should entrepreneurs expect and prepare for crises like this on more frequent basis? This is a kind of a very do we have to look at, expect and prepare for a crisis like this? Maybe we haven't prepared. Bill Gates predicted it 5 years back. He says the world is on for a pandemic. None of us, or many of us, or most of us did not take it up seriously. And now this is a question which comes up. He says expect and prepare for crisis like this. This is very serious in terms of how do we do this, and how can we do this?
Yeah. See, the thing, some of us at least noticed it when Bill Gates said, but before Bill Gates, there were a lot of virologists and epidemiologists who were saying the same thing. Public health experts who were saying the same thing maybe for a decade, and no one noticed. Okay. At least a few people heard with Bill Gates. So there is this. Now, should we be always prepared for this? Yes and no. No, because maybe you would not have pandemics or crises of this scale. But remember, we've had crises throughout human history. Even in the recent history of you had the two world wars, all in the, this century and the last, you had the two world wars, you had the 2008 subprime crisis. So there is going to be uncertainty. And I think that is also comes back to what management education is all about. That, we train people in knowledge, but we do not train them in mental skills. And what is most needed today is that you develop problem solving techniques, you develop a comfort with uncertainty, expect the unexpected. And that is true not just of large crises like that, but unexpected can happen anytime. So expect the unexpected and be mentally agile. So that kind of mindset change is required. And somehow I feel that our education system as a whole and management education as a subset of that, we cocoon our children into feeling that, yeah, once I cross this, then my life is made. Zindagi ban gaya. It may not happen. You may have to face more and more uncertainty, more and more missteps. You may stumble a lot, but you still have to get up and run again. So that is something each of us have to develop within ourselves. That old thing that you can study and then first half of your life, my parents have taught me that study hard for 20 years, 25 years. This thing study, and after that, you can relax because you'll get a job and you'll be comfortable. And I also studied very hard.
ஒரு நல்ல ஃபீல். நீங்க கேக்க அந்த நாய் ஏன் கேட்க விட மாட்டேங்குது? ஒரு क्वेश्चन நம்ம
I can hear.
சார் இதுல இன்னொரு கூத்து கேளுங்க.
Kindly mute.
அந்த இருங்க கேன்சல் பண்ணிட்டாரு. அது பேக்ரவுண்ட்ல ஓடிட்டு.
Can you hear me?
All madam, you can continue, madam. Madam, you can continue, madam.
Yeah.
Madam, you can. Somebody was speaking.
We used to have that. We used to have that, divide that, you study, then you work, and then you retire. But that's not going to be the case. Even with me, I studied hard. I was a nerd. I used to say that I was a nerd before the word was invented. But then I landed in the IAS, and it's daily troubleshooting. It's not an aram se life. That you think that you got in and you had it made. And it's going to be like this for all of us. You're going to have to deal with minor crises or major crises along the way. And you are also going to have to be a continuous learner, because technology is going to change so fast. Take a teacher, for example. They were, stand-up teachers. They were teaching in classrooms. Suddenly they have to shift to the online mode. Those who didn't keep up with technology, who followed the world today, they will not be able to communicate with their students. So you need to be a continuous learner. So a lot of mindset change is needed, and instead of fearing that, oh God, we have to expect these crises all the time, I would say that keep a mental balance and equanimity, that you expect the unexpected all the time and be ready to face it.
Madam, one final question. We will take. We will not trouble you further, but one question we would like to hear from you. What is your take on the? What is your stake? One last question. We will not trouble you further. Your take on the state of management education in this country, madam. Where do you see it going? I think things are pretty bad in some areas. Tier 1 colleges are doing well. Tier 2, Tier 3 later part, they aren't doing well. There is a fall globally also in terms of management education. But in India, the quality of management India education has always been questionable. So what is your take as on management education? How do you see it shaping up in future, or that would be your take, madam?
Yeah, see, the thing is, it's not all bad. But like everything else in our country, there's a lot of differential. Okay, that is, in fact, the real issue, rather than to say that management education itself is of poor quality. There is a huge differential. There are global institutes which offer global class education, and there are others which are not even the what the paper, the certificate is printed on. So one thing that from the regulator's point of view, we need to have a more standardized system where the inputs across the board, regardless of whether you get into an IIM or whether you get into any other private management institute or a management wing of university, you need to have certain basic inputs. And now that certain basic inputs only translates into the dress that you'll be always suited and booted. But I am speaking in terms of intellectual and practical inputs you need to have. Then, as I said, that it should be more Indian. You can't just always rely on Western education. Western theory is great. Okay, all of us have studied economics from Samuelson and strategy from somewhere else. It is good, but we need to develop our own theoretical inputs which are more in tune with our own milieu and our own society and the kind of circumstances we face. That is not always the case. So that you find that this big gap between theory and reality. And as I said, I used to teach in Kuvempu Rural University, and the research is so India oriented. I did not find that in IIM Bangalore, where they used to the research models were very sophisticated, methodology was excellent and rigorous, but the context was, or the theory which they used, or the frameworks were important. So we need to make it more Indian. We need, as I said, that we not only just develop knowledge and skills, but also the mindset. And that has to be, because as the important part of that mindset is uncertainty, managing uncertainty, problem solving, and having a collective social responsibility. So that is especially important. So I won't say it is all bad, but there needs to be greater standardization, and there needs to be an additional inputs which we are not paying so much attention today. We do have in IAMB, we have a module called Business, Government and Society, but it's just one module out of hundreds of modules which the students study. So there should be more emphasis on practice, both industry practice and practice as a whole, because we cannot say that I work in isolation from government and from society. So that some of the inputs have to be changed. I will not say it's all bad, but there's great room for improvement.
Madam, there are one more question. Would you like to take that question, madam? There is one more question. In fact, one from here, one from online. One question from here is, madam, how do you see online education replacing the traditional system of education, learning which is there, whether it's schools or colleges? Everybody is now talking of going online. Do you think? I think the existing structure of schools and colleges is inefficient and demands a complete shift, and which is what online education is all about. What is your take on online education? When that's question one of our engineering faculty member wanted to ask you, madam.
Yeah. For me, it's a tool or an instrument, right? My objective is that education should reach, of the best quality, should reach as many as possible. So that is the objective. So let's not lose sight of that. This is only a mode. In the short run, what we saw now, that institutions which were already, experimenting with smart classrooms, using the Moodle links, they were able to, make the shift pretty quickly. Others, have lagged behind. So there is, in the medium term, short and medium term, I see a shift. There is going to be a shift, and more and more online education is going to come, simply because it is so inexpensive, so convenient, it saves us so many bothers, and so many more tools are available like artificial intelligence and mixed intelligence apps, which you can use online, which you cannot do as a stand-up teacher. So there is going to be a shift. It's not going to be 100% shift. The stand-up teacher will make a return because, but there's, in another forum I have said that there used to be this picture of a teacher as a sage on a stage. So a rishi or muni standing on a stage on a dais dispensing knowledge. Now the teacher's role changes. Okay, the teacher becomes a guide on the side. You stand aside. A wealth of knowledge is available online. You point the students towards the best sources of knowledge. You say, caution them against false, fake, or wrong information which is available online. So you are more a guide on the side. So the role of the teacher will change. There will be a shift to online. It will stabilize, I think, around 60-40, 60 online, 40 offline. But that's where we'll go maybe in the coming decade or so, and then probably there will be other shifts. Who knows what the future might bring? But online is here to stay, and I think it's a good thing that there's a wealth of information available. So we should be able to tap into that resource.
Thank you very much, madam. It is incredible to. This is the whole experience of talking to you. It's just pleasure. I can say it's pleasure and so much of learning happening. And we wish, we were not constrained by the topic, but even then we have kind of moved away from the topic because there is, to get you some other time and talk to you would be difficult. We know that. So we thought we should kind of ask you these questions, and because that brings us an important perspective onto the table. This adds up to our discussion. Final words, madam. You want to tell all the faculty, most of the faculty members who are here. One minute, madam. Somebody is asking a question. I'll take it because we'll take it. Yes.
Madam,
Yes,
madam, my name is Shrikant. Madam, it's really an informative session. I have one question for you. What are the industries that will boom after this corona pandemic? Like, I want to know what are the industries likely to see post-pandemic success? Maybe some 3 industries, if I have to ask you. What do you see coming, madam, after this?
I don't know whether I should be an astrologer or a wishful thinker, but I'll give my pennies worth anyway. Most remote-based and online-based industries, we're already seeing them growing. Whether it is Swiggy or more people are going, whether it's Netflix, for example, and entertainment, Swiggy or Zomato, and the food distribution industry. So you're going to have that either industries based on that or industries which rely on that. They will see an improvement. May not be a boom because the economy itself will be affected in the short run, but they will see a growth. That is one thing which I see, and that's self-evident. I mean, anybody can see that happening. One more thing, I think that this has really put the scare into us. So there will be much more investment, I expect, into healthcare. So that is something which I see. I see this as good news. This is something, especially in our country, we need to put far more investment, and investment not just at the top, but at the bottom of the pyramid as well. So, we must have a proliferation of hospitals, maybe in the small towns, for instance. So that healthcare, both in the private and public sector, I see a greater investment, let us say, and a growth trajectory in the healthcare sector. The third, which I see and which I consider the most important, not so self-evident, is capacity building. Because as you are, growing more and more online, the reality becomes more and more important. Because the app is worthless if it does not match the reality behind it. And in my talk, I pointed out the example of Delhi, where New Delhi, they brought out this app, Delhi government, where they said we are able to display all the vacant beds in the various private hospitals. But when the patients actually went there, public actually accessed the hospital said, no, we don't, those beds are not vacant. So either the app was not capturing information properly or it was not updating it properly. We had this minor crisis happening in Delhi. So the thing is, reality becomes more and more important. And secondly, the frontline and the background worker become important. Now, I know, being in government, we are collecting a humongous amount of data. We are collecting data on patients, the patients' contacts, where they went, how many people they spoke to, every single, how many have, what is their history, either travel history or medical history. Humongous amount of information we are collecting. And who is collating that? That is being done by a technical person, some computer guy sitting behind the computer. You don't see him, he's not the face of the fight against COVID. And you are also seeing the frontline worker. So you have the background worker who is collating the information, but you have the frontline worker like the ASHA worker or the constable. They are the ones implementing on the field. So I pointed out in my talk that, you have this thing that, medical doctor or a group of doctors, medical experts, epidemiologists, they take a decision based on public health concerns that is translated into a implementable order by the bureaucracy, maybe an IAS officer, and then implemented on the field by a lower level functionary like a nurse or a police constable or an ASHA worker. Now you need to be able to train all of them so that they think and act in sync. Otherwise, you're going to have what in economics we call the principal-agent gap. The principal has an objective, the agent does something very different. And we always say, we say in our country that we plan very well, but we don't implement properly. That is because of that gap. So we need to be able to build capacity across the board. And we need to train people to work in teams. We need to focus on the front line and the background worker. So these are the three areas I see: digital-based or highly digitalized industries or firms, healthcare, and capacity building. I don't know if that answers the question. We'll see whether my prediction was right.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you for everything. Thank you for spending your time. This is a discussion which will be remembered at least in our institution and by the participant for quite some time. We think this has been a tremendous experience for all of us, where we have asked few questions to the person who is actually who has actually experienced the both sides of coin, business and public policy making. We are just, there are no other words. One word which describes all this, our feelings, is grateful. We are just grateful for you to have come here and send it. And your parting, madam, what is one book recommendation, one great book which you have read in recent times?
I think the most recent one was Yuval Noah Harari.
Yes, Yuval Noah Harari. Yes, so, Homo sapiens, 20th century, 20 ideas for 21st. Which one you read, madam? Which one, madam?
I finished one, the third one first. I forget which one was.
Okay.
Then I moved to the first and the second. So I'm a great fan. But
okay.
I still keep my faith. I believe in being a pragmatist, but not a pessimist. So there it stands.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. So kind of you, madam. It has been an incredible experience for all of us. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. The only thing I missed that I could not see any of you because your screens were not visible. So thank you very much. And maybe once the pandemic is behind us, we can meet live. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, participants. It has been an incredible, your participation has just been great. Thank you all. We could not answer all your questions, but you were just very good. Thank you all.